Zanil Okari reached home late on Christmas night, her feet tired but her heart light. She had spent hours at church, packing food and laughing with volunteers, the kind of tiredness that feels good. Lekki was quiet, the streets glowing softly with leftover Christmas lights. When she opened the door, the house welcomed her with peace. The trees still sparkled. Soft music played somewhere in the background. She smiled, thinking how lucky she was. She slipped off her shoes and walked slowly down the hallway, not wanting to break the calm. Emeka must already be asleep, she thought. She imagined teasing him in the morning about how he never waited up. Her hand rested on the bedroom door as she pushed it open. That was when the world stopped. Under the warm yellow light, Emeka was standing near the bed, holding another woman. Not a friendly hug, not a mistake. He was holding her the way a man holds someone he belongs to. The woman's head rested on his chest. His hands were familiar, gentle, confident. Zanil's breath caught in her throat. Her chest felt tight, like the air had been pulled out of the room. For a few seconds nobody moved. Even the music seemed too loud. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Emeka turned. Their eyes met. In that moment, everything Zanil believed about her life cracked open. The marriage, the trust, the future she thought was safe. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there, frozen, watching the life she knew shatter quietly on a Christmas night she would never forget. Zanil's eyes moved from Emeka's face to the woman in his arms, and that was when the second shock hit her even harder than the first. She knew her. Of course she knew her. This wasn't a stranger, not some random woman from the street. This was Amara Ease, Emeka's so-called business associate, the woman he talked about at dinner, the woman who laughed with her, hugged her, and even helped clear plates during family visits. Her mind raced through memories she didn't want anymore. Amara sitting on their couch, legs crossed, smiling politely. Amara complimenting Zanil's cooking. Amara calling her my sister with that soft voice. All those moments replayed in her head, one after another, like they were mocking her now. Emeka started talking immediately. His mouth moved fast, words tripping over each other. Zanil, wait. It's not what you think. Let me explain. His voice shook. His hands lifted like he could grab the moment and push it back in place. He looked scared, like a child caught doing something forbidden. Amara, on the other hand, didn't panic at all. She slowly stepped back from Emeka, reached up, and calmly fixed her hair. She straightened her dress like she was getting ready to leave a meeting, not standing in another woman's bedroom. Her face showed no shame, no guilt. She didn't even look surprised to see Zanil. That calmness hurt more than Emeka's lies. Zanil realized then that this wasn't a sudden mistake. This wasn't one bad night. This was something planned, something practiced, something that had been happening right under her nose while she trusted both of them. So this is why you're always busy, Zanil finally said, her voice quiet but steady. She surprised herself by how calm she sounded. Inside everything was breaking. Amara looked at her and gave a small, almost pitying smile. That smile was the final cut. It told Zanil everything she needed to know. Amara didn't see herself as wrong. She saw herself as chosen. Emeka reached for Zanil, but she stepped back. She suddenly felt very clear, very awake. The pain was sharp, but her mind was sharp too. This wasn't just cheating. This was betrayal layered on top of lies, stretched over months, maybe years. Business meetings, late nights, secret calls. All of it now made sense. Zanil picked up her bag from the chair. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't ask questions. She didn't beg. She didn't insult them. That silence scared Emeka more than shouting ever could. Zanil, please, he said again. She turned once, looked at both of them, and nodded slowly. Not in agreement but in understanding. She understood exactly who they were now. Then she walked out of the room, out of the house, and into the night. The door closed softly behind her, but something inside her had already locked shut forever. As she stepped into her car, one thought stayed clear in her mind. This was not the end. This was the beginning of something they would never see coming. Zanil sat in her car with the engine off, her hands resting on the steering wheel. The house behind her looked peaceful, like nothing ugly had just happened inside it. The Christmas lights blinked softly, almost mocking her. For a few seconds she just stared straight ahead, trying to breathe. Then her mind began to move, fast and loud. Moments from the past started replaying on their own. Emeka's late nights. His sudden meetings that couldn't wait. The way he always stepped outside to take calls. How he had slowly become sharper with his words, more confident, almost arrogant. How he brushed off her questions with, "You wouldn't understand, it's business." At the time she believed him. She trusted him. Now every memory felt dirty. Her tablet lay on the passenger seat. Zanil hesitated for a moment, then picked it up. As a logistics consultant, numbers were her comfort zone. Data didn't lie. People did. She unlocked the screen and opened their shared finance app, the one they both used to track investments and savings. That was when her stomach dropped. There were alerts she had ignored before. Small transfers here and there. Amounts just low enough not to cause panic. But when she scrolled, a pattern appeared. The same accounts. Repeated movements. Money leaving their joint funds and disappearing into unfamiliar company names. Zanil tapped deeper, her fingers steady, her heart racing. She searched one of the company names online. Then another. And another. Marais. The accounts were linked to shell companies registered under different names. But the trail was clear. Zanil knew how to read numbers. She knew how money hid when it didn't want to be seen. This wasn't sloppy. It was planned. Emeka hadn't just been cheating on her with Amara. He had been building something with her. Using her money. Using her trust. A bitter laugh escaped Zanil's lips. So this was the real partnership. Suddenly everything made sense. Why Emeka had pushed her to sign certain documents without reading them fully. Why he discouraged her from attending some meetings. Why he insisted on handling that side of the finances himself. He didn't want a wife. He wanted access. Her chest tightened, but her tears still didn't come. Instead, a cold clarity settled in. The betrayal was deeper than love. It was theft. While she worked long hours and built her career, Emeka had been quietly draining the life they built together, handing it over to another woman. "I wasn't just his wife," Zanil whispered to herself. "I was his resource." That realization hurt more than seeing them in bed. Love could break. Trust could be rebuilt. But this was intentional. Calculated. Personal. Zanil locked the tablet screen and leaned back in her seat. The pain was still there, heavy and real, but it was no longer confusing. Now it had a shape. Direction. She started the engine. As the car pulled away from the house, Zanil knew one thing for sure. She didn't need to ask Emeka any more questions. The lies had finally surfaced, and they had shown her exactly who she was dealing with, and she would not stay quiet about it. Zanil didn't drive far. She crossed the bridge into Victoria Island and pulled into a quiet hotel where no one knew her name. The lobby smelled clean and calm, and the staff greeted her like it was any normal night. She liked that. She needed normal. She checked in, took the keycard and rode the elevator up without thinking too much. If she stopped to feel, she knew she might fall apart. Inside the room, the silence wrapped around her. No shouting. No questions. No lies. She dropped her bag by the chair and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. Her phone buzzed once, then again. Emeka's name flashed on the screen. She turned the phone face down. Not tonight. Most people would have cried, screamed, driven back to cause a scene. Zanil did none of that. She reached for her tablet instead. This was the part of her that Emeka never really understood. When things broke, Zanil didn't panic. She focused. Her fingers moved fast as she reopened the finance apps, email accounts and cloud folders. Screenshots first. Every transfer. Every unfamiliar account. She saved them carefully, naming each file with the date and amount. Then she followed the trails. Contracts Emeka had shared with her, just for records. Documents she had signed without thinking twice because she trusted him. She read them slowly now, line by line. Clauses she had ignored before suddenly stood out. Her jaw tightened, but her hands stayed steady. Hours passed without her noticing. At some point, she paused and leaned back in the chair. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark window. She looked tired but not broken. That was when her father's voice came back to her, clear as day. He had said it years ago, when she was younger and angry over something small. "Never fight blind, Zanil," he had told her. "Know what you're facing before you raise your voice." She swallowed hard. He had been right about so many things. Zanil took a deep breath and went back to work. She searched company registrations. She matched dates with transfers. She traced how money moved from one place to another, quietly and cleverly. The picture became clearer with every file she saved. This wasn't emotional chaos anymore. It was evidence. She created a new folder on her tablet and paused before naming it. Then she typed one word: truth. She placed every document inside it. Emails, bank alerts, contracts, screenshots. Each file felt like a brick, building something solid under her feet. The more she gathered, the stronger she felt. When the sky outside began to lighten, Zanil finally stopped. Morning had arrived without her noticing. She lay back on the bed, exhaustion washing over her at last. She still hadn't cried, not because she wasn't hurt, but because she had chosen something else. She chose silence over screaming, clarity over chaos, preparation over pain. And as sleep finally pulled her under, Zanil knew this quiet night would change everything. Zanil woke up to her phone vibrating non-stop on the bedside table. Missed calls, messages, all from Emika. She stared at the screen for a moment before answering. When she finally picked up, she didn't even get a chance to speak. "Where are you?" Emika snapped. His voice was loud, sharp, and angry. "Not worried, not sorry, angry. You can't just walk out like that. Do you know how stupid that made me look?" Zanil closed her eyes and listened, not to his words but to what was missing. No apology, no shame, just blame. "You abandoned the marriage," he continued. "People don't do that. You don't do that. You embarrassed me." She almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she let her voice shake just a little. "Emika." I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. There was a short pause on the line. Then his tone softened just slightly. "You should have stayed. We could have talked." Before she could reply, her phone buzzed again. A text message popped up from an unknown number, but she knew immediately who it was. "Mara." The message was short and cruel. "Men move on fast. Don't drag this." Zanil stared at the screen, her jaw tight. So Amara wasn't hiding anymore. She was claiming territory. That told Zanil everything. This wasn't guilt. This was confidence. Zanil didn't reply. She went back to the call. "I'm just confused," she said quietly. "I need to understand what's happening." Emika exhaled, like a man who believed he was back in control. "Good. Then let's talk like adults. You shouldn't run away every time there's a problem." There it was. A shift. He thought she was broken. Plus, emotional. Exactly how he wanted her. Zanil leaned back against the hotel pillows, staring at the ceiling. Inside she felt calm, focused. Every word he spoke confirmed what she already knew. Emika wasn't scared of losing her. He was scared of losing control. "I just want us to fix this," she said softly. "I don't want drama." Emika relaxed completely now. She could hear it in his voice. "That's better. Come home later. We'll talk things through." "I will," Zanil replied. "I just need time." After the call ended, she sat quietly, letting the silence return. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Amara, this time with a smiling emoji. Zanil deleted it without reading the rest. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shaken. She was observing. Emika thought her calm meant weakness. He thought her silence meant surrender. He believed she would cry, beg, and accept excuses. He believed she would fight loudly and carelessly. That was his mistake. Zanil placed her phone down and opened her tablet. The truth folder stared back at her, heavy with evidence. She didn't rush. She didn't react. She smiled faintly. Let them think she was confused. Let them think she wanted to talk. Let them think she was still trying to save the marriage. The quieter she became, the safer Emika felt. And the safer he felt, the more he would expose himself. Zanil chose her lawyer carefully. She didn't want someone loud or dramatic. She wanted someone sharp. Someone who understood numbers, contracts, and silence. That was how she ended up sitting across from Barrister Tund Afolayan in his quiet office on Victoria Island. The room smelled faintly of coffee and old books. The walls were clean, the desk uncluttered. Barrister Tund looked calm, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. He adjusted his glasses and nodded for her to begin. Zanil placed her tablet on the desk and opened the folder. Truth. She didn't rush. She explained things simply. The marriage, the shared accounts, the strange transfers. She passed the tablet to him and watched his face as he scrolled. His eyes moved slowly, carefully. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react. That made her nervous at first. Minutes passed. And more. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and gave a small smile. Not a happy smile. A knowing one. This is very clean, he said. Very detailed. Zanil let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. He tapped the screen with his finger. Your husband didn't just cheat, he continued calmly. He committed financial fraud. He abused shared marital assets. He used your identity in transactions without proper consent. That is breach of trust. The words landed heavily, but they also brought relief. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This wasn't about who loved who. This was about laws. And laws didn't care about excuses. Zanil nodded. So I'm not crazy. No, Barrister Tund said firmly. You were targeted. That sentence stayed with her. He explained everything step by step. How shell companies worked. How joint accounts didn't mean free access. How signatures obtained under deception could be challenged. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't promise miracles. He spoke with quiet confidence. And that made Zanil trust him even more. This will not be fast, he said. And it will not be public at first. I prefer quiet, Zanil replied. He smiled again. Good. Quiet cases are the strongest. They began preparing papers immediately. Petitions. Asset protection filings. Notices that would freeze certain movements before Emika even realized what was happening. Zanil signed where needed, reading every word this time. As she watched Barrister Tund work, Zanil felt something shift inside her. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She was no longer reacting. She was acting. Before she left, Barrister Tund looked at her again. One more thing, he said. Do not confront him. Let him feel safe. Let him underestimate you. Zanil smiled slightly. He already does. Outside the office, the Lagos sun felt brighter than it had in days. Zanil walked to her car with steady steps. The betrayal that once felt overwhelming now had a shape, a name, and a plan. This was no longer a broken marriage. It was legal warfare. And for the first time since Christmas night, Zanil felt ready. The invitation came 2 days before New Year's Eve. Emika called it a reconciliation dinner. He said it would be good for the family, good for appearances. He invited relatives, close friends, and a few business partners whose opinions clearly mattered to him. Zanil agreed without hesitation. Her calm yes made Emika confident. He thought the storm had passed. On the night of the dinner, Zanil arrived right on time. She stepped into the house dressed simply but elegantly. Calm face, steady walk, no anger in her eyes. People smiled when they saw her, some relieved, some curious. A few whispered, clearly surprised she had come at all. Emika greeted her with a tight smile, pretending everything was fine. Amara was there too, standing a little too close to him, wearing confidence like perfume. Zanil greeted everyone politely. She laughed softly when spoken to. She listened. She waited. Dinner moved along smoothly. Wine glasses clinked. Someone joked about the new year bringing fresh beginnings. Emika relaxed more and more with each passing minute. This was going well, he thought. Oh well. Halfway through dessert, Zanil gently placed her napkin on the table and stood up. I just want to say something, she said calmly. The room quieted. All eyes turned to her. Emika stiffened slightly but forced a smile. Zanil reached into her handbag and pulled out a neat stack of papers. Then another. And another. She began walking around the table, placing a small pile in front of each guest. "These are copies," she said softly, "so everyone can follow." Confusion spread across the room. People picked up the papers. Brows furrowed, pages flipped, bank statements, email printouts, company registrations, contracts. The silence became heavy. Zanil continued, her voice steady and clear. "Over the past year, money from my joint accounts was transferred into shell companies. These companies are connected to Amara Ease." He paused briefly. "Without my informed consent." A sharp gasp came from one side of the table. Amara's face drained of color. "What is this?" she snapped, her voice shaking. "This is private." Emeka stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Zanil, stop this nonsense," he said, but his voice lacked strength. His hands trembled slightly. Zanil looked at him calmly. "These are facts, Emeka. Not nonsense." One of Emeka's business partners cleared his throat. Another pushed his chair back slowly, creating distance. Phones came out. Pages were read more carefully now. Amara began speaking fast, stumbling over her words, trying to explain. No one listened. Her confidence had vanished. Tears welled up in her eyes. Emeka looked around the room and realized too late that he had lost control. His face turned pale. The story he had told everyone was falling apart in real time. Zanil returned to her seat without another word. She didn't shout. She didn't insult. She didn't beg. She had already said enough. And in that quiet, broken room, everyone finally saw the truth Emeka had tried so hard to hide. The room was already heavy with shock when Zanil slowly stood up again. No one expected her to speak anymore. Plates sat untouched. Papers lay scattered across the table like evidence at a crime scene. Every breath sounded too loud. She didn't rush. She didn't look angry. She simply looked certain. Zanil turned her eyes to Emeka, then to Amara, and finally to everyone else in the room. Her voice was calm, almost gentle when she spoke. "Everything you stole was traceable." That was it. One sentence. It landed harder than shouting ever could. Emeka's mouth opened, but no words came out. His confidence disappeared in an instant. He looked around the room, searching for support, but found none. Business partners who had laughed with him minutes earlier quietly stepped back, creating space between themselves and him. Nobody wanted to be associated with what they were now realizing. Amara's breathing became fast and uneven. "No, no, this can't be happening," she whispered. Her hands shook as she clutched the edge of the table. The calm woman who once fixed her hair without shame was gone. In her place was panic. Before Emeka could speak again, Barrister Tundafalayan stepped forward from the corner of the room. He had been there the entire time, unnoticed by most. He placed his briefcase on the table and opened it calmly. "These documents," he said evenly, "have already been filed." The room froze. At that exact moment the front door opened. 2 police officers walked in, followed by another man in plain clothes. Their presence changed the air instantly. Conversations stopped. Chairs scraped softly as people shifted away. Emeka took a step back. "This is a misunderstanding," he said weakly. One officer looked at him without emotion. "Sir, we'll need you to come with us." Amara let out a broken sob and sank into her chair, her face buried in her hands. Her tears were loud now, messy, desperate. No one moved to comfort her. Zanil stood still. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She didn't look at Emeka with hate. She simply watched as power quietly left his body. The man who once controlled the money, the story, and the marriage now had nothing to say. As Emeka was escorted away, he turned once, eyes full of fear. "Zanil, please." She met his gaze and said nothing. She didn't need to. The truth had already spoken for her. As the officers led him out, the room remained silent. Guests avoided eye contact. Some quietly gathered their things and left. The night that was meant to repair Emeka's image had destroyed it instead. Zanil picked up her bag and walked toward the door with steady steps. Her heart was still beating fast, but her hands were calm. Power hadn't shifted because she shouted. It shifted because she knew the truth, prepared for it, and let it speak at the right moment. And that was enough. The court process moved faster than anyone expected. Once the evidence was laid out, there was very little left to argue. Dates matched. Signatures told their own story. Money trails spoke louder than excuses. Zanil sat quietly in the courtroom, hands folded, listening as her life was discussed in facts and figures. It felt strange, hearing years of marriage reduced to documents, but she stayed calm. The judge didn't take long. The ruling was clear. Zanil retained the house, the investments, the shared assets, the brand equity she had helped build from the ground up. Every attempt Emika made to claim ignorance or misunderstanding fell flat. The court saw intent. The court saw abuse of trust. Emika lost everything that mattered to him. His company accounts were seized. Business partners cut ties immediately. Contracts were cancelled. The man who once walked into meetings with confidence now struggled to get his calls returned. His name, once respected, became a quiet warning in business circles. Amara was nowhere to be found. By the time the ruling became public, she had vanished from Lagos completely. No goodbye. No statement. No explanation. Just gone. People whispered about where she might have gone, but Zanil didn't care. Amara was no longer part of her story. Weeks passed. One evening, Zanil received a message from a number she had deleted long ago. Mika. He asked to meet. Said he needed to talk. Said he missed her. Against her better judgment, she agreed to listen. Just once. They met in a quiet cafe. Emika looked smaller somehow. Older. His confidence was gone. He spoke slowly, carefully, like someone afraid of saying the wrong thing. I made mistakes, he said. But I loved you. I still do. Zanil watched him without interrupting. She noticed how he talked about loss, but never accountability. How he spoke of regret, but not responsibility. When he finished, she nodded politely. I hear you, she said. Then she stood up. She didn't argue. She didn't remind him of the pain. She didn't list his betrayals. She simply picked up her bag and walked away. This time she didn't look back. As she stepped outside, the air felt lighter. The chapter was closed. The divorce didn't just leave Emika without assets or status. It left him without access. And Zanil finally had something she hadn't realized she needed all along. Freedom. Months passed, and life for Zanil was no longer about healing quietly in the shadows. She poured her energy into something bigger than herself, a consultancy aimed at helping women protect their finances in marriage. She wanted them to see what she had learned the hard way. Trust is important, but preparation and knowledge are power. The launch was simple but impactful. A small office in Lekki, a team of passionate young women, and workshops filled with laughter, questions and stories. Zanil shared her experience openly, not to dwell on pain, but to teach strategy, awareness and self-respect. Her story spread fast. Across Lagos, across Nigeria, and then across West Africa, women resonated with her words. Messages flooded in. Thank you for sharing. I wish I had known this earlier. You gave me hope. Zanil smiled at each one. The pain from the betrayal no longer burned her. Instead, it fueled her. Every financial tip, every warning about hidden accounts, every lesson she taught was now armor for someone else. She often remembered that Christmas night, the night her world fell apart. But now, instead of shivers of betrayal, she felt pride. That night had marked the end of one chapter, yes, but it had also been the spark of another, one where she stood taller, smarter, and freer than ever before. During her first major online interview, Zanil ended with a line that made thousands pause and think. I didn't lose a husband, I gained my power. And she meant it. From that moment on, Christmas lights were no longer a reminder of heartbreak. They were a reminder of strength, of rebirth, of the woman she had become. Zanil had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her future, and nothing could take that away.